Conversation with your host Eva Pandit, and today we're talking about beyond people pleasing. Now, this topic is really hot off the press for me. It's something that showed up this week, and honestly, I thought people pleasing is one of the things in my life that I have looked at in the past and gone beyond. Because also, the kind of people pleaser that I am, or I have been for most of my life, is majority of people in my life would likely disagree that I people please. But because what people pleasing for me looks like is that I have this strong need to just make people comfortable and make people happy, and a lot of times that, in fact, I would say majority of the times, that comes at the cost of me. And so I feel that makes me feel very resentful of on myself more than anything else. And so while I've been doing things most of my life to by putting others ahead of me, I've been so defensive at the same time that on the outside, a lot of people I grew up around, especially a lot of my friends from the growing up years, and especially my family, would likely disagree when you tell them that I'm a people pleaser. They would be like, are you kidding me? Like, she's one person who has the mind of her own and does what she wants. And on the surface, while it looks like that, the kind of people pleasing that I do is that I still never, I do all that from a place of defense and like, you require this of me? Now that means that now, because I'm a people pleaser, I'll have to do this for you. So while I likely will still do this for you, I will be very mad and very resentful. And so yeah, that's also people pleasing. Just in case, like, because idea of people pleasing, when we think about it, is that there's someone who's very submissive. This people pleaser right here was not submissive at all, but I would still do what people's needs and demands are and everything that I was aware of they needed, while making myself wrong and being really angry and controlling about everything. So I thought I looked into that like years ago in my life, and I actually did, and it created a huge amount of change. But this week, something showed up again. So before I go into the story, I want to give you a peek of what this is going to be about. I'll be introducing you to how I have been handling this new thing of realizing and being aware how much I people please, and how I'm handling that with the questions I'm asking, the different approach that I'm taking going forward, and how that actually created something that never existed before, a whole new revenue stream for me. I'll get to that towards the end. I'll start my story now. So this week, I don't know if I've ever shared it here on this particular show, but I'm also a classical dancer in training, and I'm an advanced student at my academy, and I also teach the beginners and intermediate levels. And I'm gonna have to grab a sip of water. My throat is really dry for some reason. So we're gonna be starting like a new batch of dance classes in close to the area that I live in. And currently, like, I travel like about 10 miles to attend and teach my classes and stuff, but this is a place very close to where I live. And I was noticing for most of last week, I wasn't at my highest of spirit. And when I say that, usually what I mean is that my awareness has really exceeded my allowance. And I'm an empath, I'm an HSP, an ADD, so all of that put together. And when I'm not, excuse me, I have apparently like a frog in my mouth today, but in my throat. But we're going to roll with this. So apparently, where was I? What was I talking about? Sometimes I blank out. But I was talking about how, well, things like that happen a lot of times when you're showing up live and doing things. Your brain seems to switch tracks, or the train of thought that you were riding has left and you're standing on the platform. We're talking about beyond people pleasing, and I was sharing my story of this week. Yeah. So I was like really in the space of, I'm an empath. So I often tap into other people's universes. Actually, that'll be an understatement. I tap into the universe of everything all the damn time. That's how my awareness works. Very recently, I realized that I might be, super low on the spectrum. And well, that explains a lot of things in my life, like the awareness overflow, if you may say so. But that's not entirely true, because you are, as a being, are just aware at all times of everything that's around you, things that are going on in people's lives around you. You're aware of what people need. You're aware of what they're expecting. You're aware of their projections of you. And all of that kind of ties into this people pleasing topic right here. But last week, when I went out looking for a studio space for my classes, before I found a studio, and almost like for 3-4 days until that moment, I was like in this not very exuberant space. I wouldn't say I was sad or anything, but I was like in this space of neutrality where there wasn't a lot of enthusiasm. I was just doing things and, taking care of what's required. But I hadn't really felt, quote unquote, felt that hit of adrenaline. I'm pretty sure I said that word incorrect, but we're going to roll with it again. I hadn't had that rush of excitement in a few days. And I found this space. Immediately after that, I was so excited, and I called my teacher, the lead instructor, my beautiful teacher at our academy. She lives in Ohio, and the senior students, run her center here in Seattle, and she comes in to teach sometimes. So I called her up immediately after I found that space, and I was so excited. I was so happy and so exuberant, and it literally felt like, oh my God, this is a feeling I really enjoy and love, and B, a moment of realization I had was that I was not really being that for myself until I had a news to give to somebody that I knew would make them happy. And that kind of took me on a spin, because then I started looking at all the other places in my life that I do that. And I started looking at how, I feel the happiest when I am pleasing people. It's going to just sound so bizarre, but let's just say it for what it is. And what that means is when I really got into that entire thing of making myself wrong, that, oh my God, then what about me? Like if that was out of equation, if pleasing people was out of equation, then what is left? I don't even know. Like, I don't even know how to be without that. And I've created that pleasing people as a source for creating things in my life. And if that was taken away, then what is? So anyway, I started looking into that, and I really got into this kind of a downward spiral cycle where I was like, oh my God, I haven't even been living, because I've just been so tapped into what other people require, what other people need from me, what their expectations are, what would make them happy, that without that, I don't even know who I am. I mean, I kind of got really dramatic on that line, and I really started looking into it when suddenly there's one question that I first heard from Gary Douglas from Access Consciousness, and it's something that I use a lot with myself and with all my clients, is anytime you find yourself going into the wrongness of anything, Just change the narrative. Ask yourself a different question. Ask what's right about this I'm not getting. And so I started asking that. What's right about this I'm not getting? What's right about this people pleasing thing I'm not getting? And I was talking to a friend, and she asked me that, so you like to make people happy? I was like, well, yeah, if you put it like that, that's what I am essentially calling people pleasing. And so she's like, so how's that wrong? And I started looking at it. I'm like, I like to make people happy. When I, instead of calling it people pleasing, first of all, just acknowledge the truth behind the whole thing. The truth is, I do like to make people happy. I like being around happy people. I like being happy. A lot of my choices in life, a lot of my big choices in life have just been because I wasn't happy. Like, I literally, a relationship I thought I really wanted at one point in my life, I walked out of that relationship because I wasn't happy, and there was no other good reason. I was like, this is just not, it's just not, nah, this is not the energy I want in my life. And so, like, I've been able to make choices that have been, I notice, are hard for some people because I like happy, and that's what I want to be in the world, and that's what I want to see more of in the world. And so that kind of made sense that, everything that I'd made my life around making people happy. And what's wrong with that? So first thing with anything is always to get out of the wrongness of you. Hi Loretta, so good to see you here live. So getting out of the wrongness of you, the moment I was able to identify that the people pleasing that I was calling, just look at that. How much judgment is there of you when you're calling yourself a people pleaser? And how much does that bring up resentment? And how much does that bring up like anger and frustration? So when I flipped that and started looking at what's right about this and got out of the wrongness of me, I was able to see that I like to make people happy and there is nothing wrong about it. Now, having said that, the next thing I had to look at immediately after that was that, wait a second, so what about it is sticking to me? What am I doing here that is not really working for me? And that's the second thing that you look at. Look at what's working and what's not. Because here's the thing, when we start judging ourselves immediately after something, like we immediately just get into wrongness of something, we totally get to skip that part where we could draw something out of it, because now we're in this entire story of how wrong I am and how wrong this is and all of that. And so once I got out of that story, I started looking at what is working here and what's not working here. Okay, I like to make people happy, but what about my life and what about how I'm living and what about the way I'm doing making people happy is working for me and it's not working for me? And that really got me to see how much, a lot of times, while I like making people happy, what I was also doing was I was excluding myself from that. And that was the part that was not working for me. And I also had to look at what do I even mean by excluding myself from that. So a lot of times, instead of making people happy or contributing to people in their life so their life gets greater, essentially that, a lot of times because I'm an empath and I perceive immediately what the other person's demands are, what their requirements are, I know exactly what they want. I'm not even kidding. This is so crazy, but I know, I might not know what exactly I want, but with all the empath abilities, and for those of you who are empaths, I'm sure you can relate to that when you're around, you know exactly what they require, you know exactly what they want, you know what their needs are, you know when they're pulling energy from you. And so what I was doing in that moment was I would never ask myself the question, would it work for me? And is this something that essentially would work for me? And what that led to do is that I started excluding myself by trying to fulfill other people's demands and needs of me. And that was the part that was not working for me. So I had two pieces now. Piece number one, I like making people happy. I like contributing. That's my natural jam. And also, I have a gift of being aware. I know exactly what they require. And a lot of times, and in a lot of situations, I also know that what exactly would be required to deliver that. And the second piece that I had was that I wasn't always including me. So anytime I became aware of other people's needs and demands, I stopped being present with myself or stopped asking myself, what do I want to create? And, what do I require? What will work for me? And it kind of became like a necessity to fulfill other people's demands. And that became the only source of joy and happiness. And I was somewhere excluding me from that. Now, from this space came the third thing, which is the questions that I then asked. Remember, first, the allowance, not being in wrongness of you. Second, acknowledging what's not working, or what is working. And third, then asking some different questions. And the three questions that I asked, which I first actually heard from Lisa Cooney, Dr. Lisa Cooney, in one of the programs I did with her, these three questions. What do I desire? What experiences am I looking for? And what will I do to get them? What do I desire? What experiences am I looking for? And what will I do to get them? Immediately starts to including you in your choices. And so when I started looking at that, weirdly I realized that, I'm still at the inception of an idea that came up, and not at the inception. I've started instituting a few things, but I'm still not ready to share about what really came up. But I do want to share that what came out of that thing, asking what do I desire, what experiences am I looking for, and what will I do to get it, is literally a whole new revenue stream. And I am so excited ever since. I've been I've done a bunch of research. I have all my platforms set. I'm really building the energy and momentum and generating all the actions and energy that's required to actualize that new thing. And all that energy was available for me because I was willing to go beyond people pleasing. So if you've been a people pleaser most of your life, if you've put other people's need first, and even saying that, first of all, have you acknowledged the level of caring it takes to do that? Have you acknowledged how aware you are, that you're just so aware of other people's needs and expectations and projections, even when they're not saying it? What's right about that? And from there, start to look at what's working for me and what's not. Get a sense of the caring that you have. Get a sense of the enormous amount of willingness to contribute and the gift that that is for you. And then start asking a different question. Start including yourself first. Start looking at, hey, what do I desire here? Because you know what? Secret from my own experience of being kind of a bitch and an asshole to people all my life, because even though I thought that I'm people pleasing, and I was, what I was also doing is I was defending against myself and really angry at myself for excluding me. And so even though I did a lot of things that most of my life that was, from my point of view, people pleasing, a lot of people would not even agree that I was a people pleaser, because you know what? If I don't receive me, nobody can. And so, well, I guess the moral of this big story is that nothing's wrong with you. And everywhere you're making yourself wrong, all of these labels and definitions, even including people pleasing, what's right about it? What's the gift that you be underneath that? And what about how you're doing it right now, not working for you? And if you did start including yourself in the conversation and in the contribution, and started asking some different questions like, what do I desire? And I'll have to refer to my notes again. What do I desire? What experiences am I looking for? And what will I do to get it? And actually start choosing more towards that. Then imagine how different you would show up for everybody else too. I would like to end this conversation by remembering this beautiful thing that I heard from Oprah Winfrey at some point in one of the interviews that I saw. She said something like that, fulfilled, like, you know, people talk about creating a fulfilling life, and I'm totally paraphrasing, right? People talk about creating a fulfilling life, but in order to live a fulfilling life, you've got to fully fill yourself up. So I wonder, what can you fill yourself up with for you that would allow you, the greatness of you, the contribution you truly be, to show up in all its glory? All right, my friend, we'll meet again next week, exploring another topic, another conversation right here on this page. Thank you for joining me today, and I'll see you again. Bye-bye.